Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Briggs Opera House. I'm so excited to see the crowd, the turnout. I'm Samantha Davidson Green, Executive Director at Junction Arts and Media. We are so grateful to Cindy for bringing her performance here to benefit both Walk for Alzheimer's and Junction Arts and Media, nonprofit based downstairs serving the Upper Valley. We aim to uplift and amplify the good work of other nonprofits and give an opportunity for local people to use the media tools at hand to do good in the world and build community. And when I look out at all of you and I think about the power of Cindy Pierce to build community, I'm in awe. I'm going to make a couple of quick safety announcements and then introduce a speaker who will talk a little bit about the Alzheimer's Association. But in the unlikely case of an emergency, please exit the way you came in through the door here, or there's an exit directly behind the center section here. If you need a restroom, please make your way out through the double doors. There are restrooms on the second floor, to the right down the hall, or up the stairs on the third floor. A reminder to please silence your cell phones. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Howard Goodrow from the Vermont chapter of the Alzheimer's Association to introduce the subject matter that Cindy, in her unique way, enables us to both laugh and cry on the journey that she shared with her mother. Please welcome Howard to the stage.
Thank you, Samantha. Pardon the notes. Samantha's the expert. I just show up every once in a while and hope not to make too many mistakes. So thank you so much for coming out tonight to help us kickstart the 2024 Upper Valley Walk to End Alzheimer's, scheduled for October 5th at Hanover High School. As Samantha said, my name is Howard Goodrow. I'm the Executive Director of the Alzheimer's Association in Vermont. We work very closely with our Mass New Hampshire chapter, and this event in the Upper Valley is a shared event between those two chapters. I actually grew up in the Upper Valley, so I feel right at home. In fact, I very nearly failed my driver's test on this road. Some of you, sounds like, can relate to that. Tonight will be filled with laughter, thoughtful reflection, and maybe a tear or two. Call it a good break from the shoveling. I wanted to begin tonight by thanking Samantha and her team at Junction Arts and Media. They're an enormous resource for the Upper Valley and surrounding areas. It's organizations like JAM that help educate us, spread positive messaging, drive community engagement, and open our minds to new and ever-expanding ideas and points of view. Thank you, Samantha. The person we're all here to see tonight, Cindy Pierce, is a storyteller, author, and nationally recognized speaker who uses comedy to help us talk about those hard and sometimes scary topics in life. Without our ability to talk about what makes us uncomfortable, we can't fully face the challenges in front of us. Cindy's unique approach helps us to see things through a new lens and address our shared humanity. Like me, Cindy's mother Nancy was impacted by dementia in her later years. By finding the humor in our everyday life, Cindy has unlocked the thing that often carries us through and allows us the strength to move forward when the headwinds are so strong. This disease is full of headwinds. It's relentless and not for the faint of heart. There are nearly 7 million Americans living with Alzheimer's today, and left unchecked, that number is going to grow to 13 million by 2050. More than 11 million unpaid caregivers provide 18 billion hours of care, valued at $346.6 billion every year. Not to upset you, but along with Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire, we make up the 3 oldest states in the country. We're not getting younger. Well, I am, but, you know. Now for the good news. There are 5 major risk factors for dementia, all of which are largely preventable. A lack of physical activity, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, and smoking. Basically, how we use our bodies and what we put in our bodies. Just like cancer and heart disease, how we treat ourselves and the choices we make has an overwhelming impact on our brain health. Additionally, we've entered into a new era for Alzheimer's, an era of treatment. It was just 2 years ago that we could say, there is no treatment for this disease. There had never been a treatment for this disease. For the first time in history, there are now drugs that slow the progression of the disease, and many more are on the way. We should be expecting another one to come out in the next 3 to 4 months. In the very near future, we'll have a readily available blood test that will allow us to identify the markers of the disease very early so we can treat it like we currently do cancer or hypertension or HIV/AIDS. Currently, transfusions are necessary to deliver the new meds. So you hear people talk about, well, it's great, but I can't drive 2 hours once a month to go get the infusion. That will change shortly. We'll have self-injectable medications, and soon we'll have pills to make that process a lot easier and a lot more affordable for folks. My point is this: we're gaining on it. I believe in the very near future, we'll be talking about Alzheimer's either in the past tense or as a treatable chronic disease. Now, before Cindy pulls me off the stage, I want to end with an ask, one you've taken a large step toward tonight. Please get involved in the work of the Alzheimer's Association. Tonight's a great start and a wonderful kickoff to the October 5th Walk to End Alzheimer's at the high school in Hanover. If you're interested in participating, joining the planning committee, or if you or your company might want to sponsor the event, please see me or Jasmine Averbach, who's raising her hand much higher, right there. And Jasmine will be out by the table, the small table, but the table as we leave here tonight. Additionally, if you're interested in our policy work that happens both at the state and the national level, potentially becoming a community educator or support group facilitator, let us know. With that, I'm thrilled to turn the microphone over to Cindy Pierce for the remainder of the evening. Thank you for your support, and I hope to see you all on October 5th. Cindy Pierce, everybody.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you, Howard. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you from the Jam crew who's here helping it with everything. Brian on the lights. Thank you. My mother, Nancy, she was known as Big Nance, Nancy Pierce, Nancy Crawford Pierce, Nance, and Grandma and Gma. She had a lot of names. She was an amazing woman. She was funny, she was smart, she was wise and bold. And it was really hard to see that fade over the last 7 years of her life, and that slow fade that goes along with dementia. As the only local kid, my mom lived here in the Upper Valley. She and my father ran Pierce's Inn for 31 years. And my husband and I lived locally and raised our kids here. So I was the only local kid. So as her independence was disappearing, I was generally the person in charge of supporting her and organizing support and changes as she went along. And this was a great opportunity for me to lean into more compassion and to stretch my patience, which really wasn't my strong suit. I had been a first grade teacher. Bruce and I had raised 3 kids. Nothing stretched my patience more than helping a person, managing a person I love so much with dementia. And so my parents ran for 31 years. They were at Pierce's Inn. And then it became time for them to stop doing that work. And they moved next door to what we call the chalet. It's a little cabin up a windy little driveway. And Bruce and I took over the inn with our little kids. My father died a year later, and my mother spent another maybe 8 years on her own in that cabin till she was 86, driving up that driveway, bears showing up on her front porch. She was game. And that lady was a city girl. Like she was born and raised in the city. So she was pretty game, but then it was clear it was time for her to move. And she was fortunate. She chose Quail Hollow. She could live independently, but in a much safer environment. And she spent 4 years there, before her dementia was clearly starting to advance. And we moved her to Wheelock Terrace. And after about a year and a half, she needed to move to the memory unit, where she was supported so well and had such a positive experience until she died in 2019 at the age of 93, which is a good long life. And I would say all of those moves were too late, and we were lucky. We were lucky that no one got hurt, that she didn't get hurt, but it was really close enough of those times, and we got her to the next place, and then to the next place. But the trick is, my parents raised 7 children, and I'm the youngest of 7 children, and when the youngest child is kind of in charge, some of the older ones are not that psyched, we'll just say. So that was tricky, but I think raising 7 kids, you know, that it's a lot for 7 children to come to an agreement, right? And I would say it's hard for 2 children to come to agreement. I've seen families where one child clearly sees what's going on and the other is completely in denial. And it's hard when you're one child who has to make these decisions. And the beauty of 7 is you just go with majority rules. And the ones who are in denial, we just step right over them and we got this, move aside. That's how it rolled. So it was tricky because I think because I lived there, I was the first to really catch on and know what was going on and engage my other siblings to see, and some of them did. You know, my brother for 10 years saw his mother-in-law suffer with dementia, so he was very tapped in. And my sisters, they're in the trenches with me, checking it out, they're getting it. But 2 brothers were definitely in denial, and the 2 oldest. And I understand, you to see this capable, bold force of a woman fading, losing her grip on her wits, it's really hard to accept. And so the 5 of us are moving along, and these 2 are in denial. And the really tricky part is we're 4 years into a diagnosis from doctors, multiple doctors. We have observed, most of us have observed this. And here's a problem when those 2 brothers either ignore, question our observations, my observations, dismiss what I'm relaying to them about what's actually going on. To feel dismissed, ignored, questioned, that brought out the feisty 10-year-old brat in me like nobody's business. And then you lose focus on what you're here to support your mother, but now you're pissed off. And you're just like, you're 10 and you're like, all right, brothers, here we go. So there was a lot of that, drifting back and forth between, you know, focused on what I clearly need to do some time on the couch with a therapist about, and trying to take care of the woman we love. And so that was really difficult as well. Now, before I start telling my stories, I need to just let you know that the person who taught me to find humor in the odd and absurd parts of life was my mom. Yes, my mother. So at times you might be like, how could you laugh about that? But just trust me. This woman taught me that she came from a functionally dysfunctional family. She raised 7 kids. She ran an inn for 31 years. It was a daily occurrence to face odd and absurd moments. So, and it's not necessarily laughing at people, but laughing at yourself in the situation and how you either didn't handle it or just the comedy of the whole mishaps that are occurring in this glitchy, fumbly life that we live. She and my dad, they taught us to laugh at ourselves, and we could laugh at each other. So brace yourself at times when you get nervous. Just remember, Big Nance, she trained me. I trained under the master, okay? And I'll tell you, it was when she started to really, it became evident that we were on the dementia journey, that we were on the path. I was just in my 50s. You know, I was drifty over 50, let's just be clear. I was struggling to keep my own wits about me, right? You know, trying to hold on to things. And at times, I mean, it was hard. But I remember our kids were still little or still in need of our presence and our being tuned in. And I remember as they were getting older, like first they're out of diapers, you're like, here we go. And then they're making their own breakfast and they can pack a lunch, you're like, oh yeah. Then they're playing independently and you're like, here we go, we got some freedom, feeling good. It's almost like you're at Storrs Pond and they blow the whistle, tweet, Adult Swim, and you're like, yes, all the kids go out. They're at a safe distance where you can see them. They're snacking, talking amongst themselves, the dream of a parent. And the pool is calm, and I'm about to get in, and I'm like, here we go. No. All of a sudden, my mom's needs spike. Her dementia is clear. She now has me on high alert. I've engaged the siblings, but really, I'm on duty here. And what was great was my siblings recognized I had 2 jobs. My husband was running the inn. We still had kids we were, taking care of and moving around. And so we engaged the great help of caregivers who would visit my mom a few times a week. And that was so helpful. It was actually great because we had other eyes on her, experienced eyes, who could see and confirm some of the things, especially for those brothers who were in a little bit of denial. So as here I am in my 50s with my mom. Here's something really tricky. I remember my mom, her memory was gone and really she was not doing too well. And sometimes we would go head to head on trying to remember the name of a thing or a person or a place, and we'd be going at it, and she beat me to it. And I thought to myself, this is not good. This is not good. So I had to up my dementia prevention game, which meant more fiber, keep that daily exercise going, some meditation, lots of sleep, more, really like feeding the microbiome, doing some tapping. I pulled out all the stops to get my brain back together. And, it helps, but there are, you have those times or those days when you haven't slept. Have you noticed, like sometimes you're just like, oh, wow, what is that word? Not quite sure. So I remember speaking to a woman, I probably was 52, and I was speaking to a woman in her mid-70s, and we were having a conversation, and I, struggling with some words and stumbled over a few things. And at the end of our conversation, she puts her hand on my arm and she goes, dear, the nouns go first. They do, don't they? They do. I was like, point taken, on it, the nouns. And of course our kids, they really get a big kick out of the name games that we get going. And I have a group of friends, a few of them are here, Elizabeth, Kristen, Penny, and my friend Jane, they're out there somewhere. And these gals are my core group of ladies, and our husbands are all friends, and our kids have grown up together since they were wee. And they're almost like a second set of cousins. So they've all been observing the coven auntie, that's what we call it, the coven aunties and uncles, and watching us. And sometimes we all get together, and we are having one of those conversations, and it's later in the day, and they're over there, and someone will be like, hey, have you guys seen that movie? It's okay, wait, no, okay, all right, the actor in it, okay, she plays a lawyer, no, she doesn't play a lawyer, but no, okay, and then like, you get to the end of the path, everyone has to pick up their packs, go back down the path, and start a new conversation, right? And the kids are watching like, just get out your phones, guys, just get out your phones. And isn't that the thing, like, like, I'm like, no phones. We gotta work our brains. We gotta work digging through the hard drive to find that word. And even if you don't come up with it, sometimes it's an hour later, 2 hours later, and it's usually Elizabeth Keene who will be like, Julia Roberts! And then she's all cocky like, oh yeah, check me out. Steel trap right here. And we are all vicariously psyched. She's representing our generation with such gusto. And the kids are rolling their eyes like, can you believe this? Now here's the thing. Those guys are pulling out their phone at 20, 22, 24. What's that going to look like at 35? They will not have worked the brain. Like, we're struggling in our 50s. They will be struggling in their 30s. And I hope I'm not around to watch that situation. Or I hope I have if I have my wits, I can give them the business. But it's tricky stuff with the brain. Now, with my mom, the early changes, when those things started to happen, of course, I'm fearful, I'm angry that my mother is disappearing, right? Like, this is devastating. And so there were times the small self, that 10-year-old, that feisty little brat, would be like, no, I'm gonna correct her and get her back on track. And if I could just like get her back on track, she will remember this and we can like box that up and have that organized. So almost every time she came for dinner, we'd be sitting at the table and she ran Pierce's Inn, now we are in Pierce's Inn. And there would be a moment and she would touch the candlestick holder and say, oh, your father made these out of all the parts from the ships when he was in the Navy. And should just let it go like a big girl, but no, I have to correct her. No, Mom, actually, you bought these in the 80s when you were an innkeeper, and Dad made them. They're taller, they're different. They're in the other room, and he made those. Okay, and she'd go home, and Bruce, my husband Bruce, he had been through this with his own mother. He's also a compassionate, patient man. And he'd say, Cindy, what does it matter? Why does it matter? And I'm like, I know, I just can't really help myself. So and then I'd have some good moments and some bad moments, you know, if you've been meditating and tapping, and if you've been exercising and getting plenty of sleep, you're more on your game. It's a fact, right? And I remember one time, we were juggling kids, the inn was full, Bruce is slinging chow, and I gotta get kids this way and that, and the phone rings. Cindy, it's your mother. You need to make an appointment for me at Toyota. Oh, what happened? What's going on? Well, a tree broke the back window on my car. And I'm thinking, the tree broke, like, did it fall? How dangerous was she? Where did this happen? So I dig a little deeper. I'm like, what actually happened? Well, you know, I go to that concert every week, and I park in the same spot at my friend's house. It's once a month, actually. And I went to back out, and there was a tree that was about 8 inches in diameter. And it was never there before. It's coming right out of the hillside. Cindy, they must have moved that tree. And I bit my lip. Look at me go. And I said, okay, we'll make an appointment. And so we did. And I spent a full day wrangling the car. Now there's dents in the car. It's kind of like, wow, should she be driving? I'm not sure. But she's determined, and you have to pick and choose what you're going to shift in and what you're going to, you know, the battles you're going to pick. So driving, that was a tricky one. And then, of course, there's the computer. And when we all got computers, there was no talk of at a certain age, you're going to have your license revoked, it's going to end. If you had the gusto to get yourself an email account, to get yourself online, and you could tour around, all the power to you. You're off to the races. And my mom, she was late 50s, early 60s, and she was all about it. And she was bossing my dad into it. Come on, Reg, get with the times. We got to get on here. And my dad was like, oh, I'm not sure about that. Not sure. And my mom said, you got it. And she was writing up her menus, whipping that stuff out like nobody's business. And my dad, he would call me over and he'd say, Cindy, very nervous about the computer situation. He said, so your mom's got me writing my family letters on this, and I put everyone's email address in there, and I write my letter, and I press send. Where does it go? And I'm like, well, there's like the dial-up and the phone lines and the sat. I don't know squat, right? Bruce and I, we know nothing, and we're in charge of tech support for that duo. And the two of us are like, I don't know, it just works. Like, we just like trusted the system, got on there, went off, and we went for it. We're like, we're in, we can't use the hard drive to try to figure that out. We're just gonna roll. So you can imagine, like, the Pierce's Inn compound, it was the nerve center of tech savviness going on with us in charge of my parents. Dicey. So the thing is, he always talked about, like, off it goes, and he said, doesn't that feel like it's dangerous? Like, that information could get... He was right! The guy was right, okay? And it took us years to learn it, but he was right, his skepticism. So the things that happen on that computer, one thing my mom couldn't get because she was, you know, in her older years, my age, and when she was learning how to use the computer, copy and paste. She was rewriting 2-page menus, all these things. And I'm like, Mom, you got to get on copy and paste. And actually, when we moved her from each of the places where she moved, there were sheets and sheets of my copy and paste lessons. I'd have the writing, the directions, the drawings, and I'd be like, Mom, you see, Command A, select all. Command C, copy. Command V, paste. She was like, that makes no sense, Cindy. What's with the V? Should be a P. Well, P is for print, so they had to come up with something else. Cindy, that boggles my mind. I can't understand why it's a V. She never got copy and paste, never, until that computer was out of her room. She did not get copy and paste, but I worked hard at it, I worked hard. And then, of course, she would always call tech support in a panic when we're fully maxed. And I was out of town, and Bruce was home with kids and serving guests, and the phone rings, and my mom says, Bruce, you need to come over immediately. I can't make my computer work. Something's wrong. I may need a new one. It's broken. He's like, Nance, I can't come over right now. I've got a house full of guests, but let's just talk through this. What do you mean? Bruce, I put my finger on that power button, and I hold it down, and the computer starts, and then it turns off. And it starts, and it turns off. And juggling a little, like 3 dishes, he's like, okay, Nance, try this. He said, hold your finger up in the air and move towards the power button and touch it once. And he hears, no. She says, Bruce Lingelbach, you are a magician. And he gets so much credit for all the wonderful things he does, even for things he doesn't do. My mother loved Bruce so much. She just thought he was wonderful. She had her glow boys, the sons, but he was an honorary glow boy. She couldn't get enough. And the thing is, sometimes she'd say to me, Cindy, you're lucky you found him. And you're lucky he puts up with you. And as the dementia advanced, I was supposed to feel super, super lucky that he was putting up with me. It got a little more truthful. I was like, all right, I got it. I'm very lucky. So, Captain Glowboy. Then there was, of course, spam, which got really sketchy. And this was exactly what made us have to remove the computer from her life. And it started with penis enlargement emails, which she just couldn't get enough of. Cindy, I got another one. She's forwarding them to me. I'm like, please. And then this really knocked her socks off. Anal sex invitations to meet up. She was just like, what have we here? What is going on with this internet? I'm like, Mom. And then, of course, the bank scams, which she took quite seriously. Actually, she'd respond to a lot of these emails, and this is what she would say, like a big red target on her head. I am an old woman who lives all by herself. This is all very confusing. You need to talk to my daughter about this. Here's her email. For years, I couldn't open my email with my kids. And I said, everyone move over there. Okay. Finally, we said, we got to get this computer out of here. And so that was quite a task. And of course, I had to engage Glow Boys and all the family members so that I wasn't the only jerk in the situation. And so she agreed. We moved her to one of those senior computers, the WOW. But the need for tech support to start a new kind of computer, she didn't have the system. So we were getting calls all day, all night, and we were just not skilled enough, and we didn't have the time. So we agreed as a family, everyone was involved, and we made a decision that it was time to stop having a computer. And that did not go over that well. But, some things you got to do. But let's get to those Glow Boys, because really, the boys were the Wonder Boys. They just had to show up and sit with her and chat with her, and it was like, look what they do for me. And that's great, that's great. But the gals, we were in the trenches, and I understand, as a woman, she doesn't want the boys in the bathroom with her. She doesn't want them at the hospital with her. When she's at her lowest point or her most vulnerable, she wants her daughters. That's understandable. And I jokingly called us, and to their faces, I said, you guys are the Glow Boys, and we are the ass wipers. And I mean that both literally and figuratively. We are wiping asses. And we get it. And there were times I'd be like, hey, Glow Boys, I need you. Like, Mom needs a walker. She's not going to take it from us. If you guys could just smooth that Glow Boy jam and get that walker in there. And they're like, on it, got it. So they liked those tasks. They were good at those tasks. So Saucy Pants learned from her mother. And the whole family really trained me to be saucy. And it came in handy when I was managing all the adults during my mom's dementia. Clear boundaries. No, I don't have a martyr bone in my body. There is no martyr in me. I have clear boundaries. I will not take it all on and say, poor me. I will recruit, and I had 5 of them on board, and we worked together and made it happen. So what I admired so much, one of my siblings, she couldn't visit very much. She couldn't afford to get east. But during the last years of our mom's life, she came for a full week, and she dug in. Winston, my sister Winston, she loves fearlessly. This woman, her heart is open. She and my parents, they clashed when she was a teenager and a kid. And she lives in the West for a good reason. The East Coast makes her feel confined. She feels like you can drink the air. She's like, it's too much, it's claustrophobic. She lives out West. But when she came east to see our mom, she dug in. She got more out of that week. She had more impact in that week than any of us did over the course of a whole year. She would sing with my mom. They'd sit and tell stories. She'd dress her up. They'd dance together. Oh, and just tell stories and cry and laugh. She would take her to movies. She would take her to the co-op where she used to shop for many, many years. And they'd walk through the aisles and they'd shop for food for hours. I have no patience for such an activity, but cheers to Winston. And then they'd come home and Winston would cook with her. That's another thing none of us really had patience for. My mom cooked for 31 years, and I just felt like when she was coming over for dinner, I'm gonna sling this meal and I'm gonna clean it up. Glow Boy Bruce can chat her up, the kids can orbit, and let me just whip it out and we'll get this moving. But Winston got her in there, my mom all cocky, cooking stuff and making things and not remembering recipes, but having a ball. It was so beautiful. And Winston, I just admire just how vulnerable and how open-hearted she is. And Winston and I, we both have a little bit of a chimpanzee gene going. We are the groomers, so we are like a hands-on with our mom, like we love that stuff. We were always plucking and filing and massaging my mom up, like that's how we connected. And when we were moving our mom to Wheelock Terrace to the first room, the older siblings were like, wouldn't it be great if she could come back to Pierce's Inn for a night and she will just feel at home? She was absolutely baffled by the Pearson. And where am I? What is this place? She was completely confused, so confused she had an accident trying to find the bathroom because she couldn't find it. So number one ass wiper happened to be there, and on duty I go. I get her tidied up, get her in the bathtub, I'm cleaning the bathroom. And even though her memory was gone, her humor was unbelievable. She's in the bathtub, and she takes one of the little hotel soaps. Cindy, these soaps are so small, they could get lost in a few places. She's naughty, she's so funny. And then after I get everything cleaned up, I go to get her out of the bathtub, and she couldn't lift her bath wherever she had been. In other baths, you could easily get in and out. So I'm like, okay, Mom, here we go. And I'm a strong lady. And I go to grab her. No, she's soapy, a little gelatinous, got that gene myself. And I couldn't get a grip on her body. I'm like, okay, Mom. And then I'm kind of panicked. I'm like, I cannot get her out of here. I cannot get her out of here. She's laughing. She thinks it's hilarious. I'm like, all right, Mom. So I drain the tub. And you know when you're panicked, you're blinded, you can't see solutions. So I drain the tub, kind of dry her off, and I still can't get a grip. I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So I'm like, okay, I got to find the ass wipers. They got to help me. So I go running downstairs. I'm like, hey, guys, can't get Mom out of the bathtub. Winston pops up. I got you, girl. And up we go. Winston, she's about 6 feet tall. She goes, here's what's gonna happen, Mom. We're gonna flip you over on all fours. We're gonna get you up on one knee. We're gonna pop you up, boom, chicka, boom. And in 70 seconds, my mom's up and out. I'm in shock. I'm like, Winston, how do you do that? And Winston goes, Cindy, when you're a bartender in a VFW for a year, do you know how many 200, 300-pound guys step off the bar stool, hit the ground on their back? I come around the bar. Here we go, Phil. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to get you rolled over, get you on here, get you out into a taxi and out of my bar. I'm like, whoa, girl, that is good stuff. How about that for a life skill, right? I haven't get to execute it out in the world yet, but I'm always at the ready. But it's a good one. So long-term and short-term memory. We all understand that people with dementia, first their short-term memory goes, but some of the long-term memories really stick. And it's amazing to hear what they remember and the stories. And sometimes it's absolutely beautiful. Sometimes it's heartbreaking. And in this case, there were times, unfortunately for my parents, they lost 2 children before my sister Sarah and I were born. So those 5 older kids experienced the loss of 2 brothers. Now, one brother, Rodney, he never left the hospital. He died at 3 months old. He had a hole in his heart. His lungs hadn't developed. He had a cleft palate. He never was integrated into the family at home. But still, this family, used to having all these siblings, heartbreaking. And 5 months after Rodney died, Angus died of measles. And Angus was almost 4 years old. So this family really, like Sarah and I were born into a family that was still sorting, and in some cases really not sorting the pain and the trauma of those losses. And of course, when we were growing up, our parents were very open about talking about those children and telling us, because we were so curious. They had a whole different experience with growing up with Angus. So we'd ask questions and they would answer it, and they would tell us the details about all of it. And now, obviously, when your mother reaches an older age and has dementia, we're not going to bring up the sad times. I'm not a deny, like, keep it all happy, but when someone has dementia, there's no need to be bringing up the hard things. However, those memories were tucked so deeply in my mother's mind. And there would be times we'd be talking about something else. And then all of a sudden, she would go into the specifics. She'd almost stare off, and she'd start to cry, and she would tell me the specifics about what the nurse said about Rodney, what the doctor was saying, what she was feeling and seeing. She would talk about Angus, and almost tore my heart out when she described seeing the facial expression on the firefighter who brought Angus out under a blanket. And she would just split open with emotion. And I just couldn't believe how cruel dementia is, that those memories stick. And then something would distract her, and she'd move on to another topic. And for days, I would carry those stories thinking, my poor mother, that is stashed in her mind. And on the flip side, the things that are wonderful that stick. And my mother and father had an amazing relationship. And she loved to talk about it. When we were growing up, she told how they first met. And she just would beam when she talked about my father. And every time she talked about him, she'd say, the moment I shook his hand, I knew he was the one. And and then she would light up, and this is how she felt. She said, my father, he liked women under his thumb. He was a sexist, mean, controlling man. And then she said, I dated a lot of guys in high school. Sometimes she'd say, sometimes I had 2 dates in one day, kind of braggy. And she said, in college, I dated lots of men. But you know what? Most of those men liked women under their thumbs. She said, your father, he appreciated my opinions. He thought I was funny. He let me finish my sentences. And he let me be my full self. Now, some people say, let you be your full self. Let's remember this was the 1940s. So my dad looked like progressive, big gun, like, here he goes, he's letting it all. He supported our mother. They parented together. He got a lot of grief about being a guy who changed diapers and took care of his babies. And they were very proud to be a different kind of couple. So to hear her relishing in those early years, we just would feast on those stories. And you know what? My mom, she was bold as a young person, but as the years went by, she was real comfy speaking her mind and just saucy. I mean, at times we were a little bit like, zoinks, I don't know about this. Like, the friends would be like, yo, your mom, she doesn't mess around. She did not mess around. And so the youngest 2 girls, we really witnessed some bold behavior. And I remember as a little kid going to the Hanover Co-op with my mom. And this happened 3 times with me in the car. Who knows how many times it happened without me in the car. But you know when you're in a parking lot and you're driving and you're about to pull into your parking spot and someone zips in and grabs it? Well, usually, really 99.9% of the time, you go find another parking spot. Like, that's what you do. Not my mom. She'd pull the old brake, put it in neutral, step out. Now, she wouldn't be all pissed off or hopped up. She'd get out of the car, go over, give a little tap, tap on the window. And of course, the person's so shocked, they roll down the window, and she'd say, hey, you took my parking spot. I was about to pull in here. I'd like you to back out and find another one. And on all 3 occasions, they did. But then we had to go in the grocery store at the same time, on the same path. We'd be in the freezer section like, hey there, yeah, open the veggie department. There we are again. Oh, golly. So she did not care. A couple times we were like, Mom, that is so embarrassing. Can't believe you did that. You know what she said? Girls, good for you to be embarrassed. And you know what? What's going to happen to that person if no one lets them know that they're being a jerk? Touche, old lass, touche. And you know what? By the time I was 21, I was saucing around town, speaking my mind. I kind of like, whoa, this crept on me pretty early. And just 2 weeks ago, we were in a car. There was a few people who were getting out to go into a restaurant, not in this town. And we were waiting for this parking spot. And the people were getting ready to move out. And so they were letting us out. And the people pulled out, and a car zipped in with instinct. I'm out on the pavement. I'm in my stance. I didn't even have to say anything. I get this stance. And it was a little too powerful for the situation. And the two people in their 20s looked absolutely frightened of me. The window was closed, and they just were basically like, got it. But I'm like, this was our spot. They pulled out, we got our spot. But okay, Cindy, bring it down. Don't need the full stance. I've taken Nance to the next level. It's gonna get bad. I'm telling you, it's gonna get bad. So driving, like she'd speak to the people out there. And then when she was much older, after we took the computer away, I remember one day I went over and I come in. She says, Cindy, I'm gonna need you to go to CVS for me. I said, okay, well, what do you need? I'd like you to get me some Tylenol. I'm like, oh, okay. Don't you have some? No, I strained my back. I've been taking a lot of Tylenol because I strained my back. Mom, how did you strain your back? I'm thinking, balloon volleyball? What happened? Did you fall? Like, what's going on? She's like, no, Cindy, I strained my back when I got into a wrestling match with you when you were taking that computer out of my room. I felt so badly. There was no wrestling match, but in her mind, it was a wrestling match. It broke my heart. I scurried off to CVS and got a couple bottles of extra strength Tylenol. Felt so bad. And then a week or so later, I go in, and she's all cocky now. She's got her swagger on, and I'm like, here we go. We got something. She's got something to tell me. She's like, Cindy, I've been talking to my advisors. Okay, her advisors are other people in their 80s at Quail Hollow, or, you know. She's like, and my advisors have suggested that I sue you. For taking my computer away. And I'd like you to call my lawyer, Eric Jansen, and I'd like you to tell him I'd like to file a suit. I nod my head, I agree. Mature, taking the high road. And I did no such thing, calling Eric Jansen. First of all, Eric Jansen is an estate lawyer. He created the will for my mom and dad and then changed it for her. And he's also my lawyer. So I did say, oh, Mom, that's perfect. I know Eric. He's my lawyer, too. I'll give him a call. Now, that sounds kind of mean. I chuckled. And when the visit was over, she was so cocky. After she got that out, she had this, like, wicked swagger going. She was all full of herself with those advisors. And I thought, that is pretty badass, lady. Like, that is pretty badass. So then the car is an issue, right? Like a car, she shouldn't have been driving, all the dents. All of us are nervous. How are we going to get the car from Mom? How are we going to do this? And Bruce had been through this, my husband Bruce, with his mom, and he gave us some great advice, and it worked like a charm. And if there's anything you take with you, think of this. If you need it, keep it in your pocket. So we approached our mom, and I brought a couple ass wipers with me just to feel like I had my business going. And we said, Mom, we're worried about you driving, and here's the thing. If you have an accident and you hurt yourself or you hurt someone else, or something breaks, or there's some sort of damage to something, no one will blame you. They will blame us. And on a dime, we saw the change, and she said, you're right. She had the wherewithal to say, you're right. And we have one sister with 5 children who are all driving, and an extra car would be a bonus. She said, we'll give the car to Sarah, and perfect. And that was the easiest situation. Keep that in mind. Now, of course, we didn't want to take the phone because we've taken the car, we've taken the computer, we've taken the senior computer, we've moved her a couple times, so we're feeling like, let's let her have the phone. And we got her one of the phones that has the big buttons with our names on it, so she could press 2 buttons and then press our name, and it would just go right to us. And then the phone calls started coming in 10, 12 times a day, full panic. And just the sight of the phone would trigger, she'd walk into her room after dinner and she's alone. She's a little confused, and so there's her anchor. So she'd go over the phone, and first she'd dial me, but sometimes I was traveling, sometimes she couldn't reach me. And then she'd go through it. And I remember my brother McGregor said he's 3 hours away in Maine, and he gets a call, and it's 9:45 at night. And my mom says to him, "McGregor, it's your mother." He's like, "Clearly, we got that." "I am at the co-op, and I can't get home." And he's immediately panicked. You know, you get the tweaks, and you lose logic when you're thinking, my mother. He's picturing her standing in front of the co-op by herself late night. It's a chilly night. He's panicked, and he's like, "Mom, what do you mean?" "I need someone to pick me up, and Cindy's not picking up her phone." He's thinking, do I call the police? Do I call Bruce? What? He's pinging, and then he's like, wait. He goes, "Mom, do you see a picture of Pierce's Inn on the wall?" "Yes, yeah." "Is there a bed in the room?" "Yes." "What color is the bedspread?" "Blue and white." And now there's a little quiz game. He takes her through the room, and she's winning all the prizes. And he is so relieved. But he says, "Here's how I'm gonna. You're in your apartment. That's where you live." And he said, "Let's hang up, and I'm gonna call you back." So they hang up. He dials her number. She picks up, and he says, "See, you're where you're supposed to be." And he put her at ease. Now sometimes, I mean, it was so beautiful. But I know when you're in the panic. And you're picturing your mother out in the cold with her walker at the co-op. How did she get? I mean, all the irrational things. And you get blinded. I've been there many a times because she called me 10 times a day. And in the beginning, she'd call in a fluster. She had imaginary ailments. Ailments were her big thing. "Cindy, I have got my left arm is numb." And when you hear that, you're like, we are off to the emergency room any time of day. But you'd get to her house, you'd get to her apartment, she would have no recollection that she had called, she had no ailments. So after a bunch of those situations, but then there were some that it was off to the numb arm one. There was a few trips to the emergency room, and Bruce I seem to be in Miami speaking or somewhere else, and he's having to juggle the kids and get my mom to the emergency room. And sometimes I'd talk to my mom, and she said, "Well, you know, Bruce and I always have such a terrific time at the emergency room together." She loved it when I was traveling. She'd get him scrambling, get him to the emergency room for hours that he didn't have, I will point out. So that was one thing. The ailments was something. Another thing was, and this is something to remember, she had a suitcase, and it was in her closet. And when she'd come back to her room after dinner, confused, lonely, and my mother was never someone who would say, "I'm scared and lonely." She'd have a whole lot of other ways around that. I have an ailment, and this one was, she'd see the suitcase, she'd pack as many clothes as she could fit in it, she'd call us at all hours, and she said, "It's your mother, ready to be picked up at the hotel." And I'm like, what hotel? And finally I realized, it's the sight of this thing. When I'd go visit the next day, it would be full of all her clothes. So we removed the suitcase, and that eliminated, but you can't keep up with this, right? There's so many things. And then there was always the one she'd call and say, "You haven't visited me in years. I haven't seen you in weeks, months," whatever it was. And sometimes I'd go for a long visit. I feel like I invested my time. I was super present. We're in there massaging, grooming, jamming, chatting, cleaning. I'm doing it all. And I'd come home, and she'd call and say, "Cindy, I haven't seen you in months." And that 10-year-old's like, "I didn't even get any credit for all that time." Small person, still needs some time on the couch, but no time to get there to get the help I need to work through that stuff. And she was just demanding in a lot of ways. And here's something I also discovered. Some of my anger and frustration, my mom was a loving, wonderful mom in so many ways, but let's be clear, if you're my age, we were raised by wolves, really, let's be clear. So, a lot of free range business going on. And so she was now asking of me to be available to her, to be attentive to her, to respond to every request in a way that she never was for any of her children. And that part of me that was, that's when you're like, okay, that's like lowercase t trauma, got to do some work on that. We'll get to that. But it makes you realize that's where some of that resentment going. So I'm hoping some of you who are caring for someone with dementia that be kind to yourself. I'm sharing with you like the dark side of how you feel and the little child in you that's going to respond in these ways. So another thing, so the I haven't seen you in weeks, that one would get me. And then sometimes she was just absolutely befuddled and confused. I don't know who's paying my bills. I don't know anything. You've got to come right away. And we'd have to calm her down or get someone from the place to come and talk to her. Those were really hard years. And most of it is, there's the really hard stuff, there's the wonderful and funny stuff, but most of it's kind of the in-between, like life, right? We're living in the in-between. Like maybe 10% is the ups and downs and the rest is the in-between. But I love the highlights, the funny, crazy things that happen. And I got to appreciate that first with my mother-in-law. Bruce's mother had some doozies. They were great. And one of them, Bruce was over at her house cooking her a meal, and he's next to her stove, and he sees the Morton salt. And Morton salt's blue on the side, and then it has the white top. And he picks up the salt, and in big, bold letters, written in a ballpoint pen with a big exclamation point on the top of the Morton salt, it says, "Too salty." I love that. That, we use "too salty" to this day. If one of us has a drifty moment, we'll be like, "Too salty?" "Too salty. Sorry, had a little mishap." So just so great, and we'll throw that out to each other. And I remember a couple times with my mom, the chimpanzee. When I say massage, like we'd get the shirt off and massage her up, massaging her legs. So she had a sore neck when I went to see her. So I got her sitting up in her walker, and I said, "Here, we'll take your shirt off." And I take her shirt off, and I see jockey written across the front of her boobs. And her boobs are pressed together and janked sideways. Her cleavage is at this angle, and I'm like, what have we here? And it turns out not only was the bra inside out, it was also backwards. Late in the day, janked, not noticing, not caring. And bras for older people, everyone says, oh, you just got to get her a bra that buckles in front. You still, like, the movement of arms, get bras. So we got her the loose jockey that she could get over her head easily and not ruin her hairdo. But you can't win the bras. The inside out and backwards, no. Oh my gosh. And then one time, you think when she loved the hairdresser. That's where she got so much care, touch, and 4 hours of time to herself. She always said, "It's the only time I got to myself. Your father won't come near it. The kids won't come near it." They walk in, they're like, oh, the hairspray smell. We couldn't stand it. So she went and escaped, and she loved like sitting under the dryer, getting her hair done. And my mom always had this helmet head. It was like this white helmet, bouffant, yet not, like its own planet kind of hair. And it was her signature hair. And so she stopped being able to go to the hairdresser, so she'd go to a new hairdresser every week who was working in the place. And of course she couldn't remember what to tell her how her hair would go. So the woman's trying to figure it out, and she said, well, first I'd go in curlers. And so the woman would do the curlers. And one time I went to pick her up to take her out to lunch, and I walk in, Shirley Temple's there, like full curls. And I'm like, okay. Oh boy, I couldn't even look at her. So we get down to the apartment. I'm like, I can't sit across from her at a table. Something's got to give here. And you guys, I have no hair care skills, zero. Look at this, like low maintenance. But I'm desperate, and I'm like, Mom, let's look in the mirror here. Is this what you were aiming for? And she's like, I don't know. I said, let's do some work. I'm going to get you back closer to yourself. So with my terrible skills, I took out those curls, kind of poofed it and puffed it, and we'll just hold off till next week, and then I'll have a little chat with the hairdresser. Oh my gosh, there were so many incidents like that. And one time, I was, I went, I was given a full massage to my mom. As she got older, like, just the way she used to, like, pat my head, I just was like, I got to give this back to her. So I would come in, and usually she'd say, hello, Cindy. But this one time I come in, and she gives me this big grin. Well, hello. She's so welcoming. I'm like, all right. So I come in, I pluck the chin hairs, I clip the nails, file the nails, I clip her toenails, file the toenails. We're chatting away, chatting away. I massage her face, I take off her shirt, I massage her neck and arms, put her shirt back on. Now I've got her pants off, she's freewheeling in the diaper, and I am in a full leg massage, like I'm massaging with the cream. She puts her hand on my arm and she goes, oh, you're Cindy Pierce. I'm thinking, can anyone come in here and get you naked and give it a go here? Like, yikes, yikes. So I'm a little taken aback. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And as we got towards the end of her life, she wasn't as much of a conversationalist. And sometimes I would come for an hour and just massage her, and she would doze and tell me how great it was. And it was really okay. It was just like, no conversation, but connection. And we connected, and just soothing her and giving her some release. Not just muscles, but just putting her at ease. It felt like such a gift to her. And when we got towards the end, I remember she was starting to fall a lot. And the place has to call you, and you have to check in to know that she had had a fall. And I was on my way to Boston on that afternoon, and I got a call in the morning, your mom had a fall. It was before breakfast. So I zip on down there, and I find my mom, her hair, she never really left, no makeup. Wrinkles in every direction, but she'd have on her pink lipstick. That's one thing she never forgot, that system of so she never left the room without her lipstick, a little poof to the hair, and she was a bra lady. She liked her bra. And so this morning I came to breakfast, hair's all over town. There's no lipstick. She has a little bit of a look like, really? And no bra, like tits akimbo. I'm like, something's going on here. And she wouldn't let them help her dress. That's the thing. I am all set. And she had so much conviction, sauce, and chutzpah that they were like, okay. I mean, she was like, back off, I got this. So here she was. They showed me some bruises. She seemed okay, but she was definitely exhausted. And I thought, something's shifting here. And the day before, we had actually signed her up to get ready, like she was signed on to hospice care in case something happened the day before. So things looked like they were okay. She met with her friend. She was having breakfast. And I went home. And when I got home, there was a message. Cindy, this is Wheelock Terrace. Your mother has taken a fall. And I said, oh, I already know that. I was just there. And they said, no, she's fallen again. And she's not well. And we called the hospice nurse, and they have started morphine. So I am devastated. So I hustle back down there. I cancel my talk in Boston, and I come in, and it's clear that we are now on our way. And so I call all the siblings. 2 are out west. One's flying to Texas. One's in Pennsylvania. And I say, I have no idea how long this will be, but it has begun. And we've been through this before with relatives and with our father. So my sister got up from Massachusetts, the 2 youngest. We were side by side with our mom all day. And we got all the kids on FaceTime. And we'd hold it up. Even though she was on morphine, she'd smile, she could hear, when the Glow Boys were on, she lit up, wagging her tail. And Winky's crying and expressing and giving it a go. And she's hearing them, and you can tell she's connecting. And one sister didn't have FaceTime. She didn't have an iPhone, so we didn't do that. And then we didn't know. We thought that sister might be coming, so we go through the night. And I remember the night she didn't have as much morphine that night. When she woke up and we were going to be on alert, maybe tag team, the nurse said she came in and my sister and I are like beached out, snoring like nobody's business. We were sleeping like mad. But in the morning, my mom woke up and she saw Sarah's face and she said, oh, and then she said, I think I need a vacation. And we thought, you are going on vacation and you're going to be released from this confusion and you're going to be released from the physical pain and being restricted. You are going on vacation. So the day went on, and the most beautiful thing, they are written about, the evergreen singers. My friend Leanne Moshe, she told me about the evergreen singers. She's part of that group. And they're written up in Hanover Magazine this season. Read about them. And what I love about it is they come to sing a person home. I mean, I almost cry right now how beautiful it was. And it was right around the holidays, so it was a tricky time, but they got some singers around my mom. And we wept. We were blown away. We wished our siblings were there, and they sang these beautiful songs. And my mom, her eyebrows were raised, her mouth was moving. She couldn't sing, but she loved music, and she was feeling it. They were singing her home. And then they left, and the day went on, and a snowstorm started, and we're holding our hands, and her breath is slowing down, and there's time between those breaths, and we asked the people, how long? When do you know? And they said, sometimes it can go a minute between breaths. And so we're holding her hands, and we're holding her hands, and there's longer than a minute. And it goes on, and we think that's the end. And the head nurse leaves and goes to write up to declare the time of death. And as soon as she's gone, all of a sudden, Big Nance is back in the game. We're like, oh my goodness, okay. And the nurse walks back in. She's like, what? Oh, whoa, whoa. We're all like, here we are. So she's back breathing more normally again. We're like, okay, she's not ready to go. And then we think, all of her children's voices have been here except for Polly. We got to call Polly, maybe. So I text Polly, Polly, would you get on speakerphone with Mom? We're getting towards the end. And she said, absolutely. Now I want to tell you about Polly. Sister Winston is all heart and tears and emotion. Polly is, she is full of love. She is full of heart, but she tucks it in. And we never heard her cry too much. We don't hear her cry like openly the way some of us do. And she's pretty reserved. We get her on speakerphone. We put it close to her mother's ear. You can see her eyebrows go up, and Polly just talks to her for a little bit. And then Polly says, Mom, I'm going to miss you so much, and I love you. And our mother took her very last breath. Thank you very much for listening tonight. Thank you.